No one noticed it at the time. No one thought it mattered. But the victim left behind a clue that would solve the case years later. The crime occurred in the late 1990s in a quiet area where violent crime was rare and shocking when it happened. The victim was discovered inside a familiar location, suffering from severe injuries but still alive. Emergency responders focused entirely on keeping the victim stable while officers secured the scene and began documenting evidence. At that moment, no one was thinking about hidden clues or final messages. Everything was about urgency, procedure, and survival. During transport to the hospital, the victim drifted in and out of consciousness. Paramedics attempted to keep communication going, asking simple questions to assess responsiveness. Most of the answers were unclear. The victim was struggling to breathe, struggling to remain conscious, and struggling to speak. At one point, the victim managed to say a short phrase. It was quiet, fragmented, and difficult to understand. It did not sound like a clear sentence. It did not sound like a name anyone recognized. A nurse later wrote it down in the medical report, assuming it was either delirium or the result of trauma. No one treated it as evidence. Several hours later, the victim died. The investigation moved forward without that detail. Detectives began their work the way they always do, reconstructing the victim's life and searching for reasons someone might want them dead. They interviewed family members, close friends, co-workers, and recent contacts. They examined the scene for signs of forced entry, a struggle, or anything out of place. Nothing stood out. There was no weapon recovered. There were no eyewitnesses. Security cameras in the area provided no useful footage. The victim had no criminal history and no known enemies. Financial records showed nothing unusual. Phone records revealed no threatening messages or suspicious calls. The case became frustrating quickly. Investigators followed every lead until each one ended the same way, with no evidence strong enough to support an arrest. As weeks turned into months, attention shifted to newer cases. Eventually, the investigation slowed to a crawl. After several years, the case was officially classified as cold. The file was boxed, labeled, and placed into storage along with hundreds of other unsolved cases. The medical report containing the victim's final words remained inside the file, untouched and unexplored. It was never re-examined because no one believed it mattered. Time passed. Detectives retired. New officers joined the department. Technology advanced. Procedures changed. But the case stayed frozen in time, unresolved and quietly forgotten. Years later, the case was reassigned to a new detective as part of a cold case review initiative. Unlike the original investigators, this detective had no emotional connection to the case and no assumptions about what mattered or what did not. He started from the beginning. He read every report, every interview transcript, every piece of evidence collected at the time. He reviewed crime scene photos, timelines, and forensic results. He also read hospital records, something that had not been prioritized during the original investigation. That is when the phrase stood out. The words written in the medical report were brief and strange, but they did not feel random. The detective noticed that the phrase was recorded clearly, not marked as incoherent speech. It had been written down carefully, as if the nurse believed the victim was trying to communicate something specific. The detective began researching it. He searched databases for names, aliases, and nicknames that matched the phrase. He compared it to online usernames, old email addresses, and informal identifiers connected to people in the victim's life. At first, nothing appeared. Then a connection surfaced. The phrase matched a nickname used exclusively by one individual who had been close to the victim. Not a public name. Not something widely known. Something personal. Something private. The detective began rebuilding the case around that discovery. Investigators re-examined phone records and financial activity, this time looking at interactions involving that individual. Patterns emerged that had been overlooked before. Small inconsistencies that seemed harmless on their own now formed a larger picture. The suspect had been interviewed briefly during the original investigation and dismissed due to lack of evidence. Now, with new context, that dismissal looked premature. Police brought the suspect in for questioning again. There were no accusations. No aggressive tactics. Detectives simply asked the suspect to explain the phrase recorded at the hospital. The reaction was immediate. The suspect hesitated, avoided eye contact, and struggled to respond. The phrase should not have been known to anyone outside a very specific relationship. As questioning continued, the suspect's story became inconsistent. Details changed. Timelines shifted. Eventually, confronted with mounting evidence, the suspect confessed. The confession confirmed what investigators now understood. The victim had attempted to identify their killer in their final moments, using a reference only that person would recognize. Years after the murder, the case was finally closed. What makes this case particularly unsettling is not the brutality of the crime, but how close investigators were to the answer from the very beginning. The victim had left the truth behind, quietly and patiently, waiting for someone to understand it. In the end, justice came late, but it came. And the most haunting part of the case remains this simple fact: the victim solved their own murder. If you're into real cases, unanswered questions, and stories that refuse to stay buried, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. It helps this story reach more people, and keeps these cases from being forgotten.